I'd just like to conclude the series that I started last week, a series on stewardship. So just a recap of what we discussed last week. I started this series last week by defining who a steward is, and I'll go over that again quickly. First of all, a steward in the biblical sense is someone who has a relationship with Jesus. And the consequence of that relationship is that someone becomes aware of the gifts that Jesus has given or God has given him or her. And then the third leg of that is, having been made aware of the gifts, he or she is also made aware of the people that God sends to him or her that needs those gifts that God has given to him. And the best way to explain that further is to look at each one of us as, look at it this way. When God sent us into this world, he gave us a garden to tend. And there are tomatoes, onions, pepper, all kinds, cucumber in the garden. That reflects the different people that comes into your life. But like he does give to a farmer, he gives you the resources to take care of the garden. And for me, Judgment Day on the last day is as simple as this. God brings a picture of the garden before you, and he says, how come the tomatoes died? How come only the cucumber survived? What happened? And so that's, for me, it's a good picture of who a steward is. Someone who knows, who has a relationship with Jesus, and is aware that because of that relationship, God has given him gifts. And those gifts he should put into use. And God will send him people who need those gifts. So today I want to conclude this homily series by talking about the people that God sent to you. And we call this relationships. Today I want to talk about how to steward the relationships that God gives us. Sometimes we think relationship just happens. But nothing just happens in our lives because everything is planned by God and orchestrated by him. So he sends someone into our lives is for a reason, for a purpose. There is something he puts into us to help that person become better. And he puts into that person to help us become better. And a very good picture of that is as a mother. God sends you as a mother, and your garden are your children. And so, let's talk about the relationships you should have with those children. Relationships as a worker you should have with your co-workers. Relationship you should have in the church with your fellow parishioners or with the priests. Those different relationships God puts in your path. How are you a good steward? How are you using the gifts God has given you to make the lives of those people better? One thing we know in life that is most messy and tricky is relationships. If there's any source of conflict in today's world, it stems from relationships. It's caused so much pain, so much heartache, yet we can't walk away from it. And have you ever wondered why you can't walk away from relationships? Sometimes I laugh when people say, I'm just done, not having that relationship anymore. Well, you're done with that one, but there are other relationships that are waiting because it's in your DNA. We can't function as an island. It's not possible because we're made for relationships. That's why God created us. So as messy as it is, God still wants us to walk through it and make it work. And how can we do that? And that's just what I want to share with you quickly. Because God is going to ask you on the last day, what did you do with those relationships? Because they just don't happen. And why is it that God cannot just say, okay, life hasn't been so fair to you, so you can give up relationships. You have my permission to give up relationships. God never does that. No matter how hurt you are, he still puts you into either new relationships or older relationships. Why? Because it is only within relationships that you can use your gifts. And I give an example. If you have the gift, one of the things I do with my clients is I ask them, what's your purpose? And that's a deep question. And oftentimes when I ask a client that, they said, oh, never really thought about that, my purpose. And so I was doing this purpose discovery with this client, and she came back to me, she said, I think my gift is I love to feed people. I enjoy it when I feed people and just make them happy. So let's say that's your gift, feeding people. Well, how can you exercise that gift without relationships? You can feed dogs, but it's not the same. You can feed cats, it's not the same satisfaction you get. So people, you can't just feed strangers. You need relationship to use your gifts. And this is why God doesn't say, oh yeah, I excuse you from relationships because they are so hard for you and you don't have the gift. You don't seem to have the gift. No, he sends us back and he gives us the gift to work at relationships because we cannot use our gifts. We only use our gifts within relationships. And so if relationships are so messy and yet tricky and yet very necessary, how can we be good stewards of the relationships we have? And the answer is very simple. When God asks you to do something and he hands it to you and he says, go do this, you got to go back to him and ask for a manual for it. And I say this every time I preach at weddings because in today's world, especially in North America and Europe, you hear people often say, keep God away from my marriage. Keep God away from my marriage. I don't want God in it. I don't want to get married in the church. And then what I ask people like that is, where did marriage come from? Where did it come from? You think it's a contraption by man? It's 1,200 years old. God created marriage. And he called you into it. And so if he called you into it, how do you keep him out of it when he's the one that has a manual for it? The same thing with relationships. We want to have relationships outside of God. We want to do it our own way in a very selfish way. We don't want to do it the way God does it. Well, how is it going to work? God calls you into a relationship for a reason. And the best way to live that relationship is to go to the one who called you into it. And learn from him the way he loves. So how did God love? Or how does God love? Very simple. Genesis tells us how God loves, or how he loved. He created man, and he created man to be in a relationship with him. And Genesis 1 tells us that God created man to be in a garden so that he can go visit with him all the time and have a deep relationship with him. And they can hang out as friends. Just imagine what life would have been if our parents were not deceived by the devil. We'll have all still been in that garden where there is no cancer, there is no divorce, there is no separation, there is no sadness, there is no death, there is no loss of job, there is no anxiety, there is no stress. Imagine a world without all of this. That's what he created us for. And then suddenly in Genesis chapter 2, the deceiver came and deceived man. And he still continues to deceive us up to today. And the consequence of that deception is man pushed God away. And God was mad, as you should expect. He was mad because we threw out his plan. Best plan that he had for us. He was mad. But after a while, God said, I can be mad for all I care, but I feel sorry for these people because I love them. Is that not what you parents do? Sometimes I call it enabling, but it's love. It doesn't matter how many times your kids offend you, you get mad. And next minute, you change your mind. Why? Because you love them. Because you love them. And God said, I'm going to repair this brokenness. And that's what we celebrate today. How did he repair it? He said it's going to take one thing, and it's a huge sacrifice on my part. But because relationship is very important for these people, and they can't live without me, I'm going to make that huge sacrifice. And today's gospel tells us that huge sacrifice, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Miniature gospel, the summary of the good news, that he sent his only son To do what? To repair the broken bridge, so that now you can have a relationship with God. And that's what we celebrate today, exaltation of the cross. And some people criticize the Catholic Church that we keep a cross with a human being on it, and it traumatizes people when you look at the cross or the crucifix. So take the corpus or the body out of it and leave only the wooden cross. Well, I was saying last night, if you've been around me for some time now, you know one thing you always see me wear, and you probably not see it if I'm wearing my collar, is I have a chain, a golden chain. And the only time I don't wear this chain is on Good Friday, because I don't wear jewelry on Good Friday, as a respect, my own way of respecting Jesus' death. But I wear this chain, it's worn out. When I go home, my friends say, we can get you another chain. This is worn out, but I don't care. I wear it all the time. Do you know why I wear that chain? It was the same chain my mother was wearing when she was killed in an accident. Does that chain traumatize me? It doesn't. What does it do? When I like to wear it under my shirt, I feel it on my skin. I just feel the closeness of my mother, and I feel the warmth of her love. This is what the cross is. And my mother's love is not even perfect, but God's love is so. Look at the crucifix. That's why it doesn't traumatize us. Actually, it makes us feel good to know that I do matter, I'm important, God cares about me. That's why he paid the ultimate price so that he will have a relationship with me. Now, what do we learn from that in our own dealings with people? That relationship takes work. And guys, you know what I'm talking about. It takes work. There's nothing in life that takes work like relationships. Sometimes you get your fingers burnt, but you come back at it again. Because God got his fingers burnt, but he came back at it. And he's teaching us you gotta always come back at it. Because it's important. All the people I put in your life, it's for a reason. And I want you not to just do what today's man does. Cancel culture. Just cancel them out of your life. If God were to cancel us out, we wouldn't be here this morning. And so he says, don't be in a hurry to just cancel out. Because that's where we always go to. Put work into it. And I want to say two things quickly that makes it difficult for us to put work into relationships. Number one, I'm sure you know where I'm going. Number one, what is it? I don't have it here, which is interesting. I don't have my phone on me. That's a blessing. But I feel exposed and lonely and like I don't have a shirt on. You know how you feel when you leave your phone at home? Like the world is going to come to an end? I'm almost feeling that way. I don't have my phone on me. Wow, that's a miracle. The first major problem with putting work at relationships is the deluge of distraction. And the greatest distraction today is the digital world, the phone. It's very addictive like coffee is, but I love coffee, or like chocolate is. But the bad side of it is because it's addictive, it takes you off from what is most important. So technology today does not allow man to be present. Yesterday we had a retreat for new Eucharistic ministers. And one of the gifts they got during that retreat was I exposed Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament on the altar for 40 minutes. And they all sat down here and they just spent time before the one they love most. Just see how generous he is. Every time you need him, you call him, he comes. Why? Because he knows you can't have a relationship without presence. Today's man wants to have a relationship without presence. It's not possible. We want to raise our children without presence, almost by correspondence. It's not possible. We want to sustain our marital relationship without presence. That's not possible. Some things cannot grow without presence. And one of them is relationship. And what makes it difficult is something else that competes for our time. And nothing in today's world competes for our time like the tech world. The other thing that makes working at relationships so difficult is how we go into a relationship without setting boundaries. And because we don't have boundaries, we have no priority. And why is boundary important if you are going to be a good steward of your relationship? I'll use this as an example. Say God sends 5 people into your life at this season of your life. And maybe 2 of them at work, 1 is a family member, differently. But there are 5 people, for example. 5 people for sure. You've discerned that the Holy Spirit tells you, these are the 5 people I've given you. And you're to sustain a relationship with them. If you don't have boundaries, guess what happens? You find yourself spending time with the one of the 5 who monopolizes your time. And because as Canadians, the last thing we want to do is offend people, even though they make us feel mad sometimes, but we pretend like everything is okay, we can't push back. And because we have no boundaries, what is happening? The 4 others that we should spend time with were robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it's the same thing we do with God. God can get the tail end of the stick because there are so many other things monopolizing our time. That's because we don't have boundaries. If God puts 5 people in your way, in your path, He wants you to spread your time and make sure that you are present to those 5 people in your life. And one way to be present is to prioritize. If I were to ask you this morning, and this is for your reflection during the week, when you look at the list of the people in your life, what are your priorities? Can you honestly, as a mother, say that my children are my priority? As a dad, can you honestly put your hand on the Bible and I say swear? And you can honestly swear that your children are your priority? You know how you find out? Pick up your phone, go through your call log for the past week. You will see where your priority is. Look at your Google Calendar. You will see whether God is a priority. If God doesn't make it into your calendar, it's because it's not a priority. If your children don't make it into your calendar, if your parents, aged parents, don't make it into your calendar, it just means that they are not a priority. Something else is a priority. And so I'd like to end this homily by stressing that for us to get this right, the only way we can get relationship right is if we love God first. When we love God first, it helps us to love people properly. And I hear this all the time, I'm conflicted, Father. If I put God first, what about my family? Almost like my family is competing with God. And I say, no, loving God is the lens through which you love your family. If you don't love God well, you will not be able to love people selflessly. And so I want to ask you this morning, as I end this long homily, is God topmost on your list of priority? You know how you find out? Can I have my second slide? And I want to end with this. If God is really your priority, does it show on your bank statement? And I know this is one topic Catholics don't like the priest talk about. Don't talk about money. For God so loved the world. What's the next line? He gave. There can't be love without giving. How do you say you love God and you don't give to Him? And I really want to challenge you, pray about this. What support are you giving? This is your parish. How much support are you giving to your parish? Can you honestly look at your bank statement and say, I think I'm supporting the work of God and what He loves most? What does God love most? His church. Can you honestly say that is the case? When I was preparing my homily, I went back through my credit card statement, and I won't say to you that I was proud of myself. I know I give to the parish, but it's not good enough. I found myself spending more on Amazon than I spend on God. And what does that say to me as a priest? And so I'm challenging you. Can I ask the Finance Council to please, I have this booklet that I want to share, and I want you to take it home. It tells you also, there's a prayer for giving, and it also gives you the financial summary of the financial statement of the parish. You wouldn't like to see it because we're in the red. And look at the number here this morning. There were 60 people last night. How could we have this number and we're in the red? What does that say? And this morning is not to guilt you, it's to challenge you. Because I felt convicted myself when I was preparing my homily, when I went through my credit card statement. Can I have the finance counsel, please? And can each family just take this? And there's an opportunity for you to sign up for PAG if you're not a regular giver to our parish. And if you're a regular giver like myself at the back, there's an opportunity for you to increase. You don't have to do that here tonight and this morning. You can take this home and pray about it. But we're talking about God first. And it should show somewhere. Show in the color of your knees because you're always kneeling before God in prayer. And it should show in your bank statement.